Hello there. Those Tory rebels boasting that they have sufficient numbers of MPs on their side to force the UK to remain in the single market will undermine voters' faith in democracy. There are claims by insiders that 13 Tory MPs will vote against the government when a bill to prepare the UK for trade after Brexit comes before the House of Commons, reports The Sun. And pro-EU labourites are hoping that Jeremy Corbyn will change his mind and come down on the side of staying in the single market if he thinks he can bring Theresa May and the Conservative government down. In a warning to the Tory rebels, Conservative MP Matt Warman said, "I would say to my colleagues, democracy must come first. What people voted for, whether some in this place like it or not, is a clean break, because that is what allows us to have the control that people voted for." But the FT reports that 10 pro-EU Tory MPs have already signed an amendment that calls for the UK to stay in a customs union with the EU post-Brexit. Speaking in the House of Commons during the customs union debate, Labour MP and Brexiteer Kate Hoey said, "There is no doubt about it, and the honourable member for Rushcliffe, that would be one Ken Clarke, actually in his final sentence, where he said that we should be staying in the customs union and we should be staying in the single market, what he really was saying, we should be staying in the EU." And of course, there are a lot of people here today who, I am afraid, are using the issue of the customs union as a way of being able to start the process again of trying to stay in the EU. They won't achieve that. But what they are doing, I believe, is actually giving a message to the European Union that they will be loving. They will be loving the fact that they are seeing that division within this Parliament and that we cannot all unite on actually saying to the European Union that we want to see a proper agreement where we don't need tariffs and we can work with them as we would want to work with the rest of the world. In short, what Kate Hoey is saying is these UK members of Parliament are doing their level best to make sure that the EU wins the most out of any trade negotiations with us. And they have sided with the opposition. They are giving comfort to the enemy. They are attempting to surrender the UK to the EU. But then many of them are used to surrendering, aren't they? They've surrendered many of our city streets to violent crime. They have made us weak by stripping our armed forces in preparation to surrender them to full EU control. They have surrendered huge amounts of our money to the EU and to some extremely dodgy foreign aid projects. They have surrendered our legal system to ECJ control. They have surrendered our ability to do trade in the best way we can for the UK so as to bolster foreign-based businesses. They have surrendered our tax money to EU control in the form of VAT. They have surrendered our tariffs and the money to EU control. They have surrendered our ability to ensure secure borders to EU control. They have farmed out our food security to EU control. They have given our fishing grounds over to EU control. They have given the EU control over our energy security. The list goes on and on. And all these Remoaners really want to do is ensure that this not only continues, but that we surrender more control to Brussels day by day, year by year. And I'll remind you again what Ken Clarke said to the International Currency Review back in 1996. "I look forward to the day when the Westminster Parliament is just a council chamber in Europe." He has been working towards this aim for decades from within, and that also, in essence, is what Remainers believe. It is not the EU they want to reform. They wish to see the UK reformed within the EU. Be in no doubt at all. And it really is undermining our democracy. Changing tack. In the run-up to the EU referendum and after, I have met a handful of Green Party members and supporters who've sidled up to me and quietly whispered in my ear that they support the UK exit from the EU. So forget the likes of the ultra-Remainer Caroline Lucas getting booed on Question Time last night for calling for another referendum. Not everyone in the Green fraternity thinks the same as she does. And as an example of this, I give you former Green Party parliamentary candidate Leslie Rowe, who is now the Financial Secretary of Green Leaves, which campaigned to leave the EU in the 2016 referendum. Writing for Brexit Central, Leslie Rowe says that Brexit is a catalyst for change, and part of that should be the abolition of the House of Lords, to be replaced by an elected chamber. In his piece, the author asks, who are these people who believe that their wishes outweigh those of the voters? And he points to the sponsor of the recent amendment to keep the UK in the EU Charter of Fundamental Rights, saying that she is turning a blind eye to the inconvenient truth that this charter is a political tool for EU integration, not a judicial one, and that the EU breaks its rules anyway. The European Court of Justice is very selective in what it decides to prosecute, and no action is taken if it is politically inconvenient for the EU establishment, he writes. And as examples, he cites the cases of Spain's woeful actions with regard to the Catalan separatists, and in Greece, where the legitimate Syriza government and the wishes of the Greek people were overruled by the Eurogroup, an EU body with no legal standing. And he quotes Yanis Varoufakis from his book Adults in the Room, where he says, "Democracy had indeed died the moment when the Eurogroup acquired the authority to dictate economic policy to member states without anything resembling federal democratic sovereignty." And he finishes his piece by saying that the UK does need its own UK Charter of Fundamental Rights, written by UK citizens for the benefit of UK citizens and administered impartially by UK courts. The ECJ would use its power to overrule the democratic wishes of the British people, just as the EU has done in Catalonia, in Greece, Cyprus, Portugal, Italy and other EU vassal states, he said. How true, and shows us all why it's so important to leave the EU completely. So, please let us all know what you think by leaving a comment below, but also please don't forget to use the share options below to push it out across Facebook, Twitter and by email. Thank you for watching. Please do like and share this video, and also subscribe to my channel. And when subscribing, please do remember to press on the little bell next to the subscribe button. That way you'll get an alert every single time I put up a new video. Thank you very much for watching.